We got Scott Lauber of the Inquirer joining us from the Comcast Business Hotline. How you doing, Scott?
I'm doing well. How are you?
Scott, talk to me about spring training. How about your first week down there? What's it feel like?
It's I'm not going to lie. It's been pretty quiet down here. I would call it kind of an uneventful camp so far, just in the sense that we know the cast of characters. They've been together now for going on 4 years together, pretty much, and all the names are familiar. You know who they are. You know their stories, and really, it's as long as they stay healthy, there aren't very many questions on the roster either. So it's really about getting down here, doing what they have to do, and getting out of here intact. And the games start tomorrow, and I think that's just a big focus is making sure that they check all the boxes and they come out of here, with the team that they expect to have.
Scott, we've heard a lot of the talk from the guys this week when they've had the full squad workouts. So they know what happened last year and the year before in the postseason. They know they came up short and the disappointment that felt with that. And then with that brings, okay, what can we do to tinker with it? What can we do to get better? And that's when you hear about, okay, well, now you've got your everyday center fielder and Brandon Marsh is going to be locked out there maybe. And then, Kepler obviously in left. And then you look at the lineup and do you mess with that? Do you think about moving Schwarber around? How much tinkering do you think is actually going to happen, or do you think we're going to roll in on opening day at the end of March and the lineup will look exactly the same?
Yeah, it's interesting, Amy. I've sort of been one who said, I will believe that the Phillies have a different leadoff hitter when I see someone other than Kyle Schwarber batting leadoff, because the last couple of off seasons, Rob Thompson has sung very much the same song, right? Like, I'm going to experiment and see, what other possibilities we have for the top of the order. And at the end of the day, he comes back to the fact that they win a lot with Kyle Schwarber in the leadoff spot. And I felt this way really up until a couple of days ago, and Trey Turner arrived in camp, and talking to him and talking to Rob Thompson more about who's going to bat leadoff, I'm starting to think it's going to be Trey Turner rather than Schwarber, for the simple fact that I think they believe that maybe leading off with Turner can help unlock a few things with him. Maybe it causes him to be a little bit more disciplined in the strike zone, right? Swinging fewer of those breaking pitches away that we saw him go fishing for last year so often, especially the last couple of months of the season in the playoffs against the Mets. I think they think he can do some things on the bases where, maybe he'll want to run more often, or maybe he'll be looking to be more active and use his legs more and be sort of the athlete, the dynamic player that they bought for $300 million a couple of off seasons ago, and maybe get away from trying to pull the ball so much, or maybe try to do some of the things that have gotten him in some trouble the last couple of years. So when you start to hear that, and Turner sounding like he's excited about the idea of leading off again. It's something he's done throughout his career before, batted first, second, and third mostly throughout his career. With the Phillies, it's been pretty much second. But he sounds excited about maybe doing something a little different and leading off again for a change. You start to think, okay, well, maybe they're leaning that way. So I think when you talk about shaking it up, there are only a certain amount of things you can do with really the same personnel. And that's one of them is trying to figure out if there's a different look at the very top that might cause some change.
We're talking to Scott Lauber of the Inquirer on the Comcast Business Hotline. Scott, you had a conversation with Kyle Schwarber. I haven't gotten to it yet, but I want to ask you what was he thinking about this upcoming season, kind of in general?
Yeah, it's a really interesting thing because on one hand, like I said, it's sort of an uneventful camp. On the other hand, there is this sort of thing hanging over this group, which is they've been together, as I said, 3 now going on 4 years, which in pro sports in 2025 is kind of unheard of, right? To leave a core together for that long. There's just changes that get made, and they've kept this core together. They've made 3 runs together into the playoffs. They're going to get another chance to make another run this year. And then there may be some changes, if for no other reason than some contracts are going to come up, including Kyle Schwarber's. And I think for a lot of them, including him, they're looking at it not necessarily as like their last dance together as a group, but just kind of understanding that that their time together is not infinite. Schwarber said something interesting to me, which was like, nobody wants to watch a bunch of 40-year-old dudes go out there and play, year after year after year. You know that there are going to be changes, and whether that's him or someone else, JT Realmuto's contract is up at the end of the year. It's sort of one more chance to try to win it together and prove that they can stay together even longer than they've already been kept together. So I think that's something that's sort of going to hang over them throughout the year. And, Nick Castellanos tried to tell people the other day that, there's less pressure on them because, some people were saying after they got knocked out in the playoffs last year, oh, maybe this team can't get over the top and can't get over the hump. And, that criticism maybe takes some pressure off. I don't think so. I think that only ratchets up the pressure because they did bring back the group. They did keep the group together, and they're going to have one more shot at it, and this is kind of their chance. So, that was Schwarber talked a lot about that. He talked a lot about, some of the things he did individually last year to sort of change as a hitter. He improved his average by 50 points. He thinks this year he can maybe trim some of those strikeouts and put the ball in play a little bit more even than he did last year. So, his evolution as a hitter, it was an interesting conversation and just, kind of a little insight into how he looks at the game.
Make sure you guys check that out. I know it's on YouTube, Scott. You retweeted it, and it's also obviously on Inquirer.com. It's really good stuff with Kyle Schwarber. And you mentioned, we're obviously talking about the core, and you have to also look at the core of the pitchers, right? I mean, you've got Aaron Nola, you've got Zach Wheeler, you've got guys that are returning, Ranger Suarez. Do you see the same kind of success that we saw last year with those core group, and now you add in Jesus Luzardo?
Yeah, I think, Amy, that the rotation is their main reason for feeling great about their chances. I think externally a lot of people look at it and go, well, the Dodgers won the World Series, and on paper, they got better. The Mets got better with Juan Soto and keeping Pete Alonso. The Phillies looked like they kind of were running in place, right, because they didn't make any huge changes. But they look at it and they say, well, we won 95 games in the NL East last year, and we still think we have good, if not a better rotation than just about anybody out there, 1 through 5. And when Andrew Painter gets here, 1 through 6. I think the key to the whole thing is this rotation, but it's also keeping it healthy, keeping it together. They've done a really good job over the last 2-3 years of keeping their pitchers healthy. They haven't had any major injuries. Ranger Suarez missed time last year, but again, it was a back injury, wasn't an elbow, wasn't a shoulder. Zach Wheeler's been healthy. Aaron Nola's always healthy. Christopher Sanchez, 180 innings last year for the first time in his career, and he stayed healthy. So if they can keep Ranger healthy and Luzardo, who had some injury issues last year in Miami, if he can be healthy this year, if they can get Painter back, that is really their main reason for feeling so good about their chances, is that they think that they'll throw a starting pitcher out there every single day who's going to give them a chance to win a game. And there aren't very many teams out there that can say that. The Dodgers, even, who won the World Series, had to use a bullpen game in the World Series in Game 4. So injuries happen to every team. The Phillies have stayed away from it, and they think that that gives them a chance to be good again.
All right, last question. Aiden Miller, what have you seen from him, number one? And number two, are they going to continue him playing shortstop when he gets sent down to the minors?
Yeah, Ricky, so they say that they are. They say that he's going to play shortstop again this year. That's their intention. I thought maybe we'd see them move him around a little bit, even in spring training, just to kind of get a look at him at third base and see what that looks like. That's not in the cards, at least at the moment. So they're going to keep him at shortstop. I'll tell you, he's a really mature kid. He's the youngest player in camp, 20 years old. A couple of years ago, was drafted out of high school, and for someone who's that young, he's really kind of impressive in terms of how he handles himself. So, I keep coming back to this. Dave Dombrowski does not shy away from pushing kids when they look like that, when they show in the minor leagues that they can be pushed. So I remember with the Red Sox, he called up Andrew Benintendi in 2016 straight from Double-A. The following year, he called up Rafael Devers after like 5 games in Triple-A. 2 years ago here with the Phillies, he called up Yohan Rojas from Double-A. Granted, it was out of some need because they had a few injuries, but, Rojas hadn't played a game above Double-A when they called him up. So the notion that Aiden Miller or Justin Crawford, can't come quickly at this point now that they're both at Double-A, I think they very much could if they have a good first half or a good first 3 quarters of the year. Could be factors later. I don't think the Phillies are counting on that. They see them more as 2026 contributors, but the history is there that they'll move a guy. Dave Dombrowski will move a guy if he shows like he can handle it, and it'll be interesting to see how Miller in particular and Crawford as well, do at the Double-A and Triple-A levels and how fast they can move.
Scott, you heading over to Lakeland or no?
I don't think so. We have some other people here, so I think they will.
So you get the bye. You get the bye.
I get to stay back and talk to the many regulars who will not be on that trip.
Oh, there we go. Well, next time we talk to you, at least we'll have some games under our belt, right?
Exactly. We're ready for, how it is, Ricky, right? Like, you get to camp, and after the first few workouts, you're like, can't wait for games to start.
Yep,
and then
let's go.
Start, like 3 or 4 days in, you're like, can't wait for the season to start.
Yeah, right?
Yes, so we'll talk to you next week, and you'll be saying, I can't wait for the regular season to go.
Exactly.
All right, Scott, we appreciate it, as usual.
Of course, anytime.
Thanks, Scott.
All right, Scott Lauber, the Inquirer, he was there.
Hey everybody, thanks for watching our YouTube. If you want to help us out, go ahead and like and subscribe for us. If you liked what you saw, go right over here to our playlists and pick out whatever you want to watch.